Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Boss Moms. I'm here with Melissa Camilleri, who is tuning in from the West Coast. So, she had to get up a little bit early for me. And we go way back to what, like February, Melissa?
Yeah, a few months ago. Now we're BFFs, so what is time?
So you guys know, I have the Riz. Like, I don't know, do women have the Riz? Well,
Definitely.
yeah, so like I have the Riz because if I can get somebody to wake up at the wee hours, um, to come be
True.
live, you gotta know. But thank you so much, Melissa, for being here and sharing yourself and your story with us. Please introduce yourself, and then we'll just dig right in.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. You definitely have the Riz. From one of your posts, I slid into your DMs and I was like, "Hi, you don't know me, but I really like you. I think you're really interesting." So embarrassing, but that's how we make friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I am just so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I was actually really honored that you asked me to do this. So I'm Melissa. I am the co-founder of an organization called Stand for the And Education Co. I started as a high school English teacher. That was the career that I thought I would have forever. That led into me really being moved by the students that I was working with who had checked all the boxes, had done everything right, and yet we're continually coming up financially short in order to get into college.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't realize, because all of my training had been in education, I didn't realize that I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I decided to create a fundraiser selling jewelry that I was making for my students, and it took off. And within 18 months, I'm skipping over a lot of the really
Ugly
fun
stuff.
part of it. Yeah, just for sake of time. But within 18 months, that brand grew to an international e-commerce brand. It was enough to leave my job teaching, which was actually a really challenging time to decide, what am I doing with my life?
Mm-hmm.
I was 32 at the time. And I really believed that what I was working on with this business had the opportunity to impact so many more lives than if I were just to stay with the 36 kids in my classroom each year. And so I did that. That turned into an organization called Complement. It was all e-commerce retail, which I had less than zero experience in. I had never worked at a clothing store. I had never I never worked retail. I only had office jobs leading up to my teaching job. And I learned a lot about marketing, about communicating, about storytelling, about connecting, like we were talking about before we went live, connecting with your why.
Mm-hmm.
And really what I was doing in the classroom is not so different. Like the day-to-day activities were different, but the purpose and the reason behind and the motivation to get up every day was really the same as it was when I was teaching. And then I became a mom. And I have 2 kids. I have 3 children altogether, but my first 2 are 13 months apart, 2 boys. And it was such a massive transition, change, restructuring of every cell of my body, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, where I ended up deciding to pull the plug on Complement, my first baby, my business baby. At the peak of its success. I was on stages, I was traveling all over, I was sharing the message, selling, we were making money. And I just woke up one day and felt miserable. Like, this is not what I built. I didn't know how to build in a sustainable way so that I could do what I really wanted to do, my soul's calling, which was to be a present parent.
Right.
And so that led to different iterations, but essentially to what I'm doing right now with my business partner, Angela Greaser, who might be watching. I can't tell who's watching, but
neither can I. We'll see later.
Okay. Angela, you better be watching. I'm just kidding. To call her my business bestie is like undermining what we are, I think, to each other, because having a business partner, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is like it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
You know, like we talk all day, every day. We, our finances are intertwined. Like we have the ultimate trust with each other as a partner to bring out into the world the work that we want to do. But what we help people do now is take their IP, take their thought processes, how they work with clients one-to-one, and we help them productize that to deliver their expertise to many people at once, to help them scale their businesses. And then through that organization, we were looking for amazing people to connect with, and we found very little options in terms of values aligned networks. We found places that you could like be a part of this big Facebook group and kind of just scroll through and hopefully find somebody who was aligned, or you could pay $50,000 to be in somebody's mastermind where they're leading it and you're not even sure like what their shtick is.
Right.
And we're like, neither of those solutions really feel like where we want to be in this stage in our business. Because we'd been at it at that time for a while, like almost a decade each. So we created our own professional women's network for consultants, for solopreneurs, for founders, people who are putting good work into the world. It's called the Prosper Network, and it is based on the core values of generosity, reciprocity, and expansion. And we've learned a lot about trust, and also about what it actually means to be to act in reciprocity, especially in business. It is
very important.
It's very important, and it is not common. Let me tell you,
it's not.
So that brings us up to the present.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I'm so glad you did that, because I feel like so many times when I ask people to introduce themselves, they are afraid to like just dig into it. So I'm glad that you like gave us the full intro.
Thank you.
You know, I hope the other moms that are watching this, or any founder, anybody who is trying to build their brand, can take a page out of your book into really, you know, introducing themselves and not being afraid to go too long. I think that's something, like, especially as women, we rush through the intro because we're so worried that we're taking up too much time or whatever. And so, like, thank you
thank you
for taking the time that you needed to introduce yourself. And so I think we already kind of know, but tell us what drives you as an individual.
I think that this has changed depending on the hat that I'm wearing, but maybe not changed, but gotten more sharp. Like when I die someday, a very long time from now, because I have a lot to do while I'm here. So someday, many, many decades from now, I want the people who are left to say, she was a really important person in my life, or she said something really important to me in my life, or she made a difference because she helped me believe in something. And she helped me find my own courage. Like, I care so deeply about the legacy that I'm leaving behind. I think that's what gets me up every day. But what I mean about that vision sharpening is that when I became a teacher, I that was very clear to me. Like, I want to make an impact. I want to be that, you know, a mentor to kids at a really pivotal age between 14 and 18. I'm not their parent. I'm too young to be their parent, but I know I can be an example. I can help encourage them to shine their light as bright as they can, to walk a path of integrity. And that carried over when I started my business and I became an entrepreneur, totally accidentally, honestly. Like, it wasn't, I never had a lemonade stand growing up. I didn't sell things to my family. I was never the kid who like sold the most wrapping paper or cinnamon rolls or whatever, you know, at the school fundraiser. I was like always last. That wasn't me, but it became something I did, learning how to sell, because that was the vehicle through which I was making an impact when I had my first business. And then now as a parent, that's all I think about. That's all I think of. Like, what can I instill in my kids that is going to last longer than I do, and will be passed down? And that is what drives me in my business too. Like, how many lives can I change by my presence, by sitting with somebody, really listening to them and helping them get what they want?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's it's so funny because you and I talked about this before, but that's part of what has driven me in my own life. I mean, I remember when I think I had to be like 15 or 16, and I heard a sermon about this this character, this person in the Bible, Jabez. And
I know what you're going to say about this, because that has expanding my territory.
Yeah. And I remember like I became so fixated on that as a teenager, where it was kind of like, okay, how can I like be impactful, at that age? And I remember like looking back at like I've always been busy. I think like we're in a season now where we tend to announce more what we're doing. But I was actually busier back then, looking back, because like I was a candy striper, I was a peer tutor, but I was also tutoring kids in middle school while I was in high school. I was co-captain for my field hockey team. And so like I had all of these things going on, plus like active in church and being like a good kid and helping my mom out and doing well in school and like all of these things. And I remember like kind of intentionally saying that prayer as like at different stages in my life. And I remember kind of like praying like, Lord, expand the territory of my influence so I can give you glory, right? Which is like a summary of his prayer. And then I remember at 18 being promoted to like manager of a department, which like what?
Like how right.
At 18, no way. Like there was no true, there was no physical basis other than like, oh, I think this kid might be good at this. Like, there was like no 5 years experience.
Right. No logical reasoning.
Exactly.
It's just who you are.
And then I remember kind of doing it the second time, like, and so it was like whenever I felt like I was outgrowing a season in my life, I would start praying and asking God, like, hey, like, I feel like I've like maxed out here. Like, do you think you could trust me with more people? And so like I would, I started kind of talking to him almost on a daily basis about how, like, do you think I could be trusted with more impact, more influence? And then I remember like going to like a larger like budget that I was in charge of where I was working. And then I moved to a different company where now I was like in like a luxury environment. And so like now I had the ear of people who had a lot of influence. So imagine like I'm talking to a CEO of a company while helping him pick out like a bathing suit. And now my idea is churning at his company. And so like, and so, it became that way. And then I became a professor. And so now it was like more impact. And then, and frankly, that's why I ended up going to big law, because I was like, I want to work in a space where whatever I'm doing, whether it's pro bono work or, the private practice finance work that I was doing, that was the goal. Like, how can I be impactful? Like, how can I have the ear of my client? So even if we're doing this like mega deal, how do I like have a natural conversation with them and tell them about a cause that they're not, oh, wow, like I didn't know about that. Like, can I sponsor that without actually having to say, do you want to sponsor this event? And so like for me, like I definitely like feel that and I hear that, because I like we were saying, before we went live just now, it's so important to have this bigger why for
Yeah.
why we're doing things. I know my older sister used to always tell me, your dream can't just be about you.
Yes, your dream has to include other people, because you'll let
you know
yourself down every
mhm
single day. If given the opportunity, we will let ourselves down.
mhm
But when you
mhm
connect it to somebody
yeah,
else,
yeah.
somebody else, something much bigger than you, then you're driven to make that
mhm
happen because you don't want to let other people down.
Exactly. Even if
Yeah.
they don't even know that, like,
Correct.
they're it's like, now it's like, oh, if I don't like, I even tell myself now, I'm like, no, you have to finish, because like you said you were going to do this so you could do
Right.
that. So like you have to finish this, right?
That's right.
Um
And people are waiting. Like, something that like haunts me, if I'm just like, oh gosh, I want to,
mhm.
maybe I should just quit this, because it happens when you have your own thing. It's like, and Angela, if you're watching, I don't really mean that I ever want to quit our business. She's like, what? You've never said this. But those days when you're like, are we idiots for thinking that this whole thing could work? Maybe
Mhm.
I'm just, I don't know. Like, I'm just an idiot for thinking this. And then I think, who are all of those people somewhere out there waiting for me to do this thing so that they can do their thing?
Mhm. Mhm.
And we know that is the case, because I think of all of the people who have influenced me in my life, any books that I've picked up, that I've read, that required that person to put a pen to paper or
Mhm.
hands on a computer, whenever it may be, and get those ideas out. They had to do that so that I could,
Right,
stand on the
right.
shoulder of a giant. I want to
Mhm.
be in that lineage. I want
Mhm.
to be a giant that somebody stands on my shoulders and
Yeah, I love that.
yeah.
Oh, we should plug that in the key takeaways. Be a giant that somebody can stand on your shoulder,
Yeah.
to get to the next level. And so my next question is, I feel like I'm gonna go all over the place now,
It's all
because
good.
I sent you a list, but I want to talk about other stuff because you raised other stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I really want to get into how you figured out that you were really good at connecting with others,
Mhm.
directly, but also how you kind of determine that you are also going to be able to connect other people, and like, is there a methodology to it,
Mm.
or is
Mhm.
it like this kind of like natural vibes thing that you're doing, or is it a combination of both? Like, how did you kind of figure that out?
Okay, let's go way back. When I was in high school, I was in a speech class. It was my senior year, and our teacher was he was like one of the coolest teachers on campus, and he let us pick our table groups who we
Mhm.
were going to be with, and we were working together as a table group to say we had to do a 2-minute how to speech, how to do
Mhm.
something. Well, my friends, I rolled with a very talented group of people. One was a singer. She was like in Broadway production. I mean,
Mm.
like West Coast children's, musical
Mhm.
theater,
Mhm.
not actually on Broadway. One was a very accomplished gymnast. One was an accomplished dancer, ballerina. And so they were all doing these like physical things, teaching
Mhm.
people how to sing a scale on key, or teaching people how to do a back handspring. And I was like, looking at them and going, I am mediocre at best at a lot of things, and I don't have anything that I can teach people how to do it, which is ironic because I became a teacher.
Yeah.
But one of the girls, like immediately, she goes, well, you're great at being a friend. And I said, well, that is the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. Like, who's going to pay you to do that? Like, I have no skills. And she's like, no, you're being really hard on yourself. Well, that conversation stuck with me, did nothing with it. I
Mhm.
became an English major in college because I like to read and write. But like no understanding of like job prospects or anything like
Mhm.
that. So networking wasn't really something that I like set out to learn,
Mhm.
because as a teacher, you don't network for jobs. There's a
Yeah.
job portal, a district hires you, and you end up where you end up.
Mhm.
During my student teaching, I had a class of freshmen. So at this point, I'm 22 years old. I have 36 15-year-olds in front of me. So I'm not even 10 years older than them.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a point in the semester where I was going through my roster and entering grades. And I was like, I could say something about each one of these kids that I know personally about them. Like, this kid loves comic books. This kid is like all into soccer. This kid, whatever. This kid's a really great drawer. This kid, all the way down the line.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think that, like, if I just show that I know them, they'll really do anything that I need them to do. Like, that I never had behavior issues. I never, I think maybe I wrote slips to go, to send a kid out to the office in my whole 10 years as a teacher. That's thousands of students in a high school. 2 times, like twice in all of those years. And it was because I started recognizing very early on that if I could build a rapport, that if I could build a relationship, people are willing to listen.
Yeah.
And I just have to show first that, like, hey, I care. Like, I care who you are as an individual. And I really do. Like, I'm just curious about people. And that maybe that comes from being a reader, just like learning about what motivates people. I don't know where that comes from. But that was early on where I was like, okay, as a teacher, networking wasn't on my radar, like I said, but I did have a very strong conviction that relationships are the most important thing. And all the curriculum comes second. A kid will learn if they know that you care. Well, that's no different than an adult. An adult will learn, or an adult will do things if they know that you care. And not as a manipulative strategy, but I just want to care. I just want to show that I care to a lot of people. And that has served me really well.
Yeah.
So when I started in the business world, I felt so naive. Like, all these people were talking about profit and loss sheets. I'm like, what? I don't, like, I just started doing my taxes on my own. Like, I did not know anything. And I was on a plane traveling to an event, and the guy sitting next to me, I knew, we had taught together. And he said, he was like, how's business going? I was like months in, like not even a year. And I was like, I mean, it's good. Like, we've probably sold, I don't know, 1,000 units. And he's like, whoa, 1,000 units? And I was like, yeah, but like, it's not paying my bills. Like, this is slow going. And I go, I'm not a salesperson. And he said, false. You are. And I was like, no, I'm a teacher. And he's like, you don't realize that every time you're standing in front of that classroom, you're selling. You're selling to the hardest audience that ever existed, teenagers. And you get them to believe in something, to buy into something, and come along with you. And that's all sales is. And I was like, oh. So it was these like little moments where I was like, okay, relationships. About a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I finally took the Strengths Finder, and connectedness is my number 2, and relational relationships. I don't know what it's called, but it's like relational is number 1. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm hardwired. Okay. Got it. But when it comes to networking as a business owner, I think where I learned any of this has come from a whole different industry. And I think that's why I'm good at it. Because business networking is so measured and transactional and like, oh, you seem important. Maybe I can give you my pitch deck. And that is gross and nobody likes it. And that's why it gets a bad rap. But I don't approach anything like that. I'm the nerd who slides into your DMs that says, I really love what you're writing about. And I would love to get on a call with you and just get to know you as a person. I didn't know you had a LinkedIn streaming live thing. I had no idea. And then you asked me to do that because it was like, oh, this person cares, because that's who you want to be around. You want to be around people who care about you. And then if that leads to a business, something transactional, then great, because it's with somebody that you like, so that's my whole philosophy. It's not anything profound. Like, it's
but
just being a human being.
I mean, you say it's not profound, but like books have been written on this, right?
Well, it's true. We're writing a book on it right now.
Yeah. And so like when you really think about it, like it is like, although it may be second nature for some of us, it's actually not second
It's
nature
not.
for a lot of people. I mean, and I'll give you an example. I reached out to somebody that like I love and admire and always have, but like we had like it was like an abrupt break
Mm.
between me and this person. And a few months ago, I was like, like I had been thinking about him for a while.
Mhm. Mm.
Um, and he's an attorney that I just respect and love, like a scholar. And I was
Mm.
like, you know what? I need to reach out to him just to say hi. And what was really bizarre was when we initially started the call, he had gotten so used to people popping out of nowhere to ask him for things
Oh, totally. We see
that
this a lot.
like maybe 5 minutes into the conversation, he was like, oh, how can I help you?
Yeah,
And
what do
in
you
my
want?
and in my
Mhm.
head, I was like, and I was so like taken aback by it for two reasons. One, I was like, oh wow, like here's somebody who's actually trying to help because you don't
Right.
always get that. So I didn't automatically go like negative leaning, but then I reflected on it later and I was like, man, like people probably just reach out to him just to get something, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember, and he's that kind of guy. He to me, he was like he has the riz.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
like he can get you into any room if that's what you want, kind of person. And I remember like intentionally, and it was funny because I really didn't want anything from him. I was like, I just need to reconnect and like see how he's doing because he just made an impression on me like
Right.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember when I said, oh, I was just checking in, like, because we haven't spoken to each other in a while. So I want to know what I want to know what you're doing and like see like, what you're up to because I feel like you're always up to cool stuff.
Yeah.
And it was like he completely melted,
Yeah.
you know? And like for me, like I never want people to think that I'm only engaging them because I want something from them. you
Completely.
know?
Yes.
And for me, like I can spot that a mile away. Like I like you like I always know it's funny. I always know when I get a connection request if a pitch slap is coming
Yeah, you
or
can
if
kind of
this is
tell.
if somebody is really going to connect with me because the way I see it is if you haven't engaged with me on LinkedIn and you want to connect with me, I want to know why because you haven't been really engaged in anything that I'm doing. You haven't added a note. um you're a social media marketer and I am an attorney, business owner, whatever, with and that's part of the reason I don't have if you check my background on LinkedIn, I think like 99% of what I've done is confidential.
Mhm.
And I did that purposely because I didn't want anybody trying to connect with me just because they thought I had a connection to someone or
Totally.
to some company. Um, because like for me, like you have to connect with me because I'm Abria. Like
Yes.
that's just kind of that, and I know that's weird for some people, but I think that's really important.
I think that's the only thing that will save us from ourselves is
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gotten worse because of social media.
Mhm.
I'm sure it has. I don't have any
Mhm.
studies or research on this at all, but people's perception of other people
Mhm.
and wanting to connect with the perception as opposed to the actual person,
Yeah.
that just feels gross to me. And I
Mhm.
can't do things that feel gross. It
Yeah.
feels like inhumane. It feels too transactional. And when I see you, I recognize a whole full person who
Mhm.
eats breakfast, walks, to wherever they want to go and goes to bed at night. Like that's one thing that Angela and I, my business partner, and I have in common that I think has really, like, this is never anything we would put on paper, but shows a values alignment, is nobody gets a pedestal. We have, there's not a single person in this world who's on a pedestal any higher than anybody else.
Yeah.
And that is very strange for a lot of people because that's not to say that I don't admire certain people or that I wouldn't really be excited to meet them, because I think, wow, they're very accomplished, or they've contributed in a really significant way. And I would love to just like be in their presence. But nobody is higher than anybody else here on earth. And so when you approach relationships that way, it's not from a uneven power dynamic.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I'm so lowly, what can you do for me? Or, oh, you're in this like fancier room than me, can you open the door? It's like, I trust that doors will be opened for me because I care enough to know about who other people are as human beings. And I have to trust that that's going to come back to me, reciprocity. And I have mounds of evidence that it has and does and will continue to do so.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that, and it's funny that you say that, like, no one's on a pedestal, like, and that has been like, that's actually a biblical principle, because God is not a respecter of persons. Like, he doesn't really care what your background is. Like, if you say yes, he's like, cool, let's go.
That's right.
And so, like, and I I'm always like making these quips where I try to be funny about my relationship with God. And I'm like, oh, I'm just like my daddy. He's not a respecter of people. So, like, I know, like, you're special, but everybody's special.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, people, I've seen that where people, like you said, like, people really struggle with that, where you're treating, like, you're not treating them like a god or like an idol.
I mean, it goes both ways. If you're the one who's on the pedestal, it's like, why are you not bowing to my feet? Do you know who I am? And then there's the opposite of that.
And for me, like, I personally think that's really weird, especially because, like, we don't really know each other. Like, I'm sorry, like, I know you're, like you said, like, I know your persona, I know who you're putting out, right? I know who you want me to perceive you as based on, your marketing, but who are you really, right? And the only way for me to truly know who you are really is by having those conversations, right? Being generous enough with my time to take the minute to learn who you are, right? Not thinking because I read your profile on LinkedIn, I somehow know you. In fact, I'm really bad about checking people's profiles. It's like,
so am I.
And a lot of times people will be like, oh, that's on my profile. I'm like, cool, like, I'm trying to have a conversation with you, but if you're not okay with regular conversations, I guess I'll go back to, like, that cold, creepy person online looking, scrolling through your life pretending I know you.
It's weird. People are weird. I don't know why people are weird, but we're weird.
And we all are. Like, I mean, like I may have mastered this part of things, but, like, I'm that person where people reach out and I'll say no. Like, can we have a coffee? No. And, like,
I don't think that's weird. I just think that's boundary. That's discernment and wisdom.
But, like, I've let enough people through where I'm like, okay, I no longer want to have these weird conversations, right? And so I think part of being a superconnector is being able to figure out, like, okay, where, like, being intentional, like, although we aren't respecter of people, recognizing, oh, like, this person is probably somebody who doesn't have a generosity of spirit based on their behavior here, based on some of the things that they're saying, based on what I've heard on the pulse about them, because a lot of times people don't realize, like, you acting up, but you don't know who knows that
That's right.
person. And now there's this story going around about you, and that's not to say people don't make stuff up, because people do, because people are weird. We've
That's
already
right.
established
We
that.
have.
But like, I think as individuals, when we're connecting with people, we have to remember, right? We have to kind of
Yeah.
remember, like I have to put my best foot forward. That was something my field hockey coach used to always tell us: put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
I think it's so important, because that's how you find a really good business partner, right? That's how you
Well,
find
that's all
alignment.
God.
That's how, you know, but
Yeah.
but like, when you ultimately think about it, it's like, if you weren't in alignment, you could have missed your business partner, right? And so like,
Totally.
and so you've alluded to Angela a few times. And
Yeah.
so, like, I feel like finding a co-founder for anything, a partner in anything, is difficult, right?
Yeah.
And so how did you guys know that this was going to be like a good a good move, like, like, or at least, like, what made you comfortable enough to move forward? I think, because, like, I feel like you don't know it's going to work out until it works out, but like,
Well, wait
how
till you hear this, because this is really going to blow your mind. We've never actually met in person,
that's awesome.
which is wild. She lives in Maine. I live
Mm,
in California. We both have young kids. There was a pandemic in there, so like nobody was traveling. I mean, it's wild to me, and it's wild to her that this works. And that's why 100% we give credit to God, because
mhm,
our pea brains could never have orchestrated this on their own. It is the result of two people really listening to God's
mhm,
will in their life. So we first met in a Facebook group
mhm,
for business owners, founders who had children all around the same age.
mhm,
And this group started, there was a lot of several women in this group were doing really big things. So there was already like this kind of high level of respect for
mhm.
one another in this group as far as work is concerned.
Yeah.
And the conversation, though, was really about running a business with young children. And so people would say, like, okay, whoa, breastfeeding formula, like I'm so lost, and I have client calls first thing in the morning. What are you guys
Mhm,
doing
mhm.
around this? So it was really about motherhood and business together,
Right.
which is a really vulnerable time. And
Mhm.
there was just a generosity of spirit. I mean, there still is in this group. It's a little less active now because our kids are all older. I was invited, and it was by invitation only. Like, so somebody who I was connected with invited me into this group. Very shortly after that, somebody had posted, "Hey, I want to do a peer-led mastermind. Is there
Mm.
anybody who would be willing or who wants to?" And I was so lonely in my business at that point. I had an infant. I was pregnant very quickly with my second, and I was like, "Yeah, I would love a master. I would love to get
Mhm.
together with a couple of business owners outside my industry and talk about what's happening." So that mastermind formed. There was 4 of us, and Angela was one, I was one, 2 other of our friends, Becky and Ashley, and we met every single week for 2 years
Mm.
through me having Lucas, and then my second child, and then things kind of got busy. Well, during the time that I was able to get a maternity leave for my own business,
Mhm.
and Angela at the time was running a service where she babysat people's businesses during
Mm.
maternity leave because she's in operations. And
Mm.
so she took over Compliment
Yeah.
for 3-4 months. She and her husband ran the business and ran, like,
Mm.
they did my employee meetings, and they made sure like the blogs were and emails were going out on time and all of that stuff. So it was really, really wonderful. And that's how I got to know her at first. But we were just friends over time. And then I decided to stop doing Compliment. She was working behind the scenes in doing big launches of really big internet people.
Mhm.
And when they needed a curriculum, she knew, like, that wasn't my forward facing business.
Right.
That's what my background was. But we had
Mhm.
spent years getting to know each other. So she
Mhm.
said, "Hey, we need a curriculum person. Come on." Like, I need somebody to run programming. And I was like, okay. And that was a lifeline.
Yeah.
And she reached out, she had me on, and then we got to work on all these projects together where she was doing ops, I was doing programming. And that just sort of happened. And then one day she was giving her kids a bath and she sent over a Voxer and she said, what are you thinking about having a podcast together? And I was like, yeah, okay, cool, let's do it. And when the podcast began, I think maybe we were how many episodes in? Like, I don't know. 8 or so episodes in, and somebody goes, hey, I think I have a client for you guys. And we were like, oh, well, we do separate contracts. Like I do this, she does this, but it's all very much aligned. And then our clients were getting confused. They're like, I thought we were hiring both of you to do all of things. And so that's when we started Stand for the End. And that's really what it means. Like you get both operations and you get programming.
Right.
You get impact and you get income. You get Melissa and you get Angela. You can be a present, like our whole core philosophy is you can be a present parent and very successful at business. But it requires a certain level of discernment, of trust, of self-esteem, of like your own value, what you bring to the table, and wisdom. And I wish I could say like we had some sort of formula where we crunch numbers and we laid out, okay, what do you want? And we didn't have, I mean, we have contracts now, like when we finally like incorporate and everything. But when we started, it wasn't like we had some really serious conversation with like bullet points of like check, check, check. It was like, yeah, let's do this. And with just an enormous level of trust and love for one another. Which is not to say we don't like disagree on things, which we do. All that it's literally just like a marriage. How do you know that you're going to pick the right partner? I am divorced. So like I'm married now to my soulmate, but the first one I got totally wrong. Totally wrong. How do you know? I think you just develop wisdom and along the way. I don't It's a God thing. That's all I can say. When you can't explain it yourself, it's all God. It's like, when Angela and I first met in that Facebook group doing that mastermind, we had a conversation. And this was like maybe 10 years ago at this point. Oh no, my youngest just turned 7. So it was 8 years ago. And she said, we both said to each other, I don't know what it is, but I feel like God has put us together for a reason. And we thought, oh, it's because you're going to babysit my business. But that was so long. And it was so much bigger than we could ever imagine. And that's usually how God works in both of our lives. And that was a really important piece that she had a really strong faith too.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so funny because I feel like people always think they need to like have known the person forever in order, or have, or even having met the person to be able to get things done. But that's how my children's books happened. Like I never met the illustrator in person. I just you know how they always say you have to like put an ad and market and all this stuff to get attention. And now you need like a photo to get the algo to get you what you want on LinkedIn. I literally I had the thought, I desperately need an illustrator. I posted on LinkedIn, I desperately need an illustrator. No hashtags, no nothing, no photo. And by the next day, the illustrator for my children's books was in my DMs because her friend saw it and sent her my info, and she sent me her stuff right away. And like, I've never met her, but
it's all check.
But we illustrated 7 books. I already had 5 books written at the time, and so I ended up writing like 2 additional, like in from like August 2022 to August 2023. We just cranked out 7 books.
That's incredible.
And both of us, like, we almost died a couple times from COVID. I had surgery. She had surgery. Like, life was lifing. Like we
Yeah.
both had full-time jobs. I mean, I was in Big Law at the time, like, and we did all that in 12 months, and we still haven't met.
Is she a prayerful person too?
And this is the crazy part. She's actually not. She lives in England. That's the other component.
Yeah.
And so it's like I look back on that and I'm like, because like there's also in Christendom this idea that the only way to have certain success is if you have to like do everything Christian based. But I think God, when you look in the Bible, God has used non-believing people in the Old Testament and in the New Testament to propel his people forward.
Oh, totally.
You know?
I only ask that question because one of the things that I pray all the time is, Lord, guide my steps. Where do you want me to go? Who do you want me to talk to? What do you want me to do? Make me aware enough to recognize when you put people in my path, because the way I see the world is that nothing is an accident, everything is ordained, and it's up to me to recognize when that person crosses my path, if that's a little angel on earth. And so because I know I pray that, I know Angela in her way also prays that she will be guided in the right way. And I think that's how we found each other. But that doesn't mean that everybody has to be praying that either. It's like, it's enough for me just by myself to pray that might
exactly.
Like whoever lands on my path.
I find who I need, and sometimes like who you need might be right there, but they're not willing to say yes, know, and that's something like we kind of have to be okay with too. I think it's like sometimes you may see some, and what was really crazy was I already had a prototype for that book. And so I had to be willing to release the prototype and start from scratch, like redo the images of my main characters, because I had started with someone who, looking back, like she was perfect because like we live in the same neighborhood. We were in school together, brilliant artist, knew her, half my life, but she wasn't committed. Right.
Yeah.
And so like 5 years of non-committal, oh yeah, I'm doing it, but not really. And then it was like things just aligned. Right. And
sometimes our timing, like this is the biggest lesson I've learned throughout everything, is that our timing is not God's timing. And so you have to be willing to surrender to how things are going to unfold and still take action toward what it is that you want, knowing full well, trusting full well, and full faith that the person, people, opportunities, the right doors will make themselves available to you at exactly the right moment, because divine timing is always perfect.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right. And so like I wanna honor the husbands, and the partners in these relationships, because I feel like a lot of times, partners get taken for granted. Life partners get taken for granted in business a lot. But I want to make sure I honor them. And so like, tell me about how, how having your husband's support has helped you, feel more free and kind of like making decisions, trying to grow a business, start a new business, like how has his support helped you along the way?
It's everything. Like I couldn't do any of it without him. He might be in the kitchen right now, like right behind. Let me see if I can turn my screen. See, that's my kitchen.
That's a nice kitchen
office.
you got there.
Oh, thanks. He might be listening. No, it's literally everything. When we first started, so I was in a previous relationship, and that did not work. And I think all the time about how I would not have the freedom or ability to be able to do any of the things that I've had that I've done in the last 12, 14 years since starting businesses. But when my husband Nick and I started dating, I had a business. So he already saw this in me that I was like, this is part of the package. Like I get a vision and I execute on it. And that was new for me. That was a new way of being in the world. But that's the only version of me that he knows. And so he was all in at the, from the get. But the wonderful thing is that he has a job that is very steady, and it's very much in his core values. Like it's his passion. So he's so lucky to have awesome benefits, to be working in his vocation. And so he has told me in times when I'm like in transition or like, hey, I think I'm going to start this new thing do you remember Angela Gracer? She babysat the business. And he's like, yeah, Angela, of course. And he tells me all the time, you swing for the fences. I'm holding it down. Like we have a steady income through him, and not to discredit what Angela and I have built, because we didn't have any investors in either one of our businesses. Not that that's wrong. Like we just didn't.
Yeah.
And I built all of my business the first time as single income. That was like, I went from a dual income to a single income. Like I've done it on my own. And so Nick coming in gives the breathing room of like, okay, our kids are taken care of. We have health insurance. We have dental insurance. He's like, swing for the fences. Go all in, go hard, see what we can do. And is always like my number one cheerleader. We get off a call and he's like, that was so awesome. Like I learned from overhearing. And so he's always giving me encouragement to shine bigger, to shine brighter. He's not threatened in any way. I mean, that's also to say, like, our communication around daily scheduling with the children is intense, like not intense communication. It's like, there's just a lot of it and it happens all the time. And so it's like, okay, do you have a 12 o'clock? Okay, I'll leave the office. I'll go to the dining room. You come to the office, you do your call. Like he's presenting to like legislator all the time. And he sometimes has to travel for work. So it's every single day is a juggle to give us both the space that we need in order to do our best work. And that, though, is the trade-off that allows us the flexibility of being home with our kids. Like we both get to work from home, which is a huge blessing. We both get to be present to our kids. He coaches my kids' Little League. He our baby naps on him while I'm on calls, and they're home with us. And that's part of the value system that we have decided as a couple. So I could do nothing without him. And also with Dan, Angela's husband, like this is really the four of us have made a commitment to one another, even though Dan and Nick don't ever see each other or ever talk really. It's not like we're having dinner parties. We're on other sides of the country, but it is a commitment to each other's families that both Dan and Nick will, like, they're holding stuff down while Angela and I are building this thing. And what's really cool, can I tell you a fun fact, is that Dan and Nick, both of our husbands, share a birthday. They were born on the same day.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
We have a company holiday honoring our husbands every January, and it's called Husband's Day. And we
awesome.
Close everything down. We don't see any clients. We send out an email that says, it's Husband's Day. We're going to go and hang out with our better halves and celebrate.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Yeah. I'm really glad that I've like managed to work that question in. And so the final thing I want to ask you about is this new thing that you and Angela are doing, this Ignite MRR. Like, what is that about?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So MRR is monthly recurring revenue, and it's the lifeblood of any business, especially if you are a consultant, somebody who's used to working one-to-one with clients, where the only way that you see an opportunity to grow is if you add on more clients or you hire and have an agency model where you're giving some of the work to another person, but that requires overhead. MRR is different. Monthly recurring revenue is a different way of looking at your business. And so we're doing a 90-day sprint with people who already have certain systems built in their business. And we roll up our sleeves, we get in your business with you, and we figure out where some untapped pockets of revenue hiding. And how do we systematize it so that it can be, so we can create an additional business model within your overall business and how you earn differently. So we are crafting a plan for business owners who want to do Ignite MRR. We're crafting a plan together with them within 90 days to have a roadmap to add 10,000 or more US dollars in monthly recurring revenue.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
so
do you want to know the bigger why? Because
yes.
It's not just about the number, but it's that when you have stability like that in your business, and 10,000 is pretty much what you need in order to, or an additional 10,000, in order to feel the difference in the spaciousness, is to create more time to live, so that you're not like, okay, just one more. Okay, I'll just say yes to one more project because that requires more of your time. And standing for the and means, like, that's our whole business name. It means you can be both and. You can do both and, but you have to do it in a way that is smart, intentional, and matched to the market. And we do this with our clients all the time. We have recently helped one of our clients who has a product-based business add an additional $53,000 of monthly recurring revenue in her business without making a single extra thing. She's a crafter. And she was she gets to take a month off this summer and spend it in Italy, which was on her bucket list for years. And that's how we know we're successful. It's not just what your bottom line says. It's that you're not working on the weekends if you don't want to be, right? It's you get to take a vacation. You don't have to work through Christmas. And that's how we're changing lives with Ignite MRR. So more stability in a time of chaos is always helpful.
No, oh my God, I'm so glad that you added the extra bit about the time, because I was on a career roundtable earlier this week giving advice to people on, let me shout out my friend Erica Jefferson's organization, Be Wise, where she actually provides these amazing opportunities for Black women in STEM to meet with potential recruiters, get coaching and development in like a group setting, but also just providing information so they can kind of navigate the space, about changes and shifts. And so I was on a panel, and that was something I said. I talked about the fact that we really need to make more time. It can't always be what extra thing I need to be doing.
Right.
It's, how can I max out in a way where money is working on my behalf, and now I have more time to do more things, more things that are gonna kind of give me energy and make me want, not something that's just gonna feel like more work, and essentially more burnout. And it's so funny because last night I saw this, I don't know, things that just grind my gears is bad. It's just where I'm kind of just stop with this toxic advice. Just go away with it. This famous multi-millionaire Jim, Layla Hormozi, I think her name is. She made this post last night about if you're not working weekends, then you're not serious, you're not going to be successful. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, but if I'm pulling 80 to 90 hours Monday through Friday, I earned my weekend.
Okay. And I'll take it a step further. If I don't have time for a nap, I don't want to participate.
Yeah.
if I have to work 80 to 90 hours to earn my weekend, I don't want to do that either.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't, like I want to go and play.
And for me, like, the reason why I said that is because, like, that was like my big law life. Like,
Right.
I was working 80 to 90 hours a week. And people were working 7 days a week. I didn't do that. I was like, you could have like some of my Saturday, but like Sunday's out. And like that was like a curse word to some people, because it was kind of like, what do you mean I can't contact you on Sunday? And I was like,
or you must not be serious, or you got to go all in.
But for me, it's like, if I'm booking more hours in less days than the people that are working 7 days a week and actually efficient and effective in my job, you do not need me 7 days. You need me to train and develop the people that you have working 7 days, wasting your time and your money. And so, no, so I'm really glad you said that, because I think, even with, and we'll wrap up in about like 2 minutes, but I think even with like, the impetus of like AI technology being here, and implementing that in the different industries, I think the mindset needs to not be, we need to eliminate, like, we're implementing this so we can eliminate people. It should be, this is how we get the 4-day work week, people. Like, can we get smart?
Right.
Like, can we get smarter about how, like this is how we do it,
Yes.
so that like companies don't need as much overhead. Like, maybe we don't need like 3 floors on a skyscraper anymore, because like you don't need everybody in the office at the same time, only when they need to be. So now, like, you're reframing how you use that space. Maybe you're renting it out to, I don't know, Sony Pictures, because they're filming something. I'm giving you guys ideas, guys.
Or places for people to live.
I
mean, there's lots of ways to disrupt the current.
So I just want to thank you, Melissa. And on that note, since I'm over here talking about time, I need to not steal another minute of your time.
I'm giving it freely.
But thank you for anyone who's listening live, and those of you who catch up later. I am so excited to have been a part of this conversation. Some of the things, I don't know if my poker face worked today, but some of these things I was hearing for the first time too. And so I'm so excited to keep following Melissa, and you guys should definitely be following her. Check out Ignite MRR if that sounds like something you need. And have a blessed rest of your Saturday.
Thank you so much for having me.